Every landscape has at least two stories, the one everyone sees and the one it quietly keeps. While exploring the area around Park City, Utah for inspiration to paint, I discovered I wasn't merely searching for a scene, but rather for a connection. Some places eagerly share their stories, while others whisper softly and invite you to listen. This was one of those special places. Stay with me, and you'll see how one quiet stretch of the Provo River became an oil painting, and perhaps remember a wild place that still whispers to you. There is something about seeing a forest from above that reminds us how small we really are. Long before roads were carved through these mountains, long before towns were built in their valleys, these evergreens stood watch over the land. They have witnessed centuries of changing seasons, storms, wildlife, and wandering travelers. Every painting begins long before the first brushstroke. It begins with a place and with a moment that quietly refuses to be forgotten.
Nature is still predominant, and there are those who regret that with the improvements of cultivation, the sublimity of the wilderness should pass away. For those scenes of solitude from which the hand of nature has never been lifted affect the mind with a more deep-toned emotion than aught which the hand of man has touched. Amid them, the consequent associations are of God the Creator. They are His undefiled works, and the mind is cast into the contemplation of eternal things. Thomas Cole, American artist, 1801 to 1848.
This journey begins nearly 2,000 miles from home. Leaving the Gulf Coast of Florida behind, we trade sea level for mountain peaks, humid air for crisp alpine mornings, and familiar landscapes for one of the most beautiful river valleys in the American West. Utah has a way of making you slow down. The mountains don't ask for your attention, they simply earn it. Nestled within the Wasatch Mountains sits Park City. Today, it's known around the world for skiing, mountain biking, and its vibrant mountain town culture. But beneath its charm lies a much older story. This community was built during the silver mining boom of the late 1800s, and many reminders of that remarkable history still remain. The streets are lined with beautifully preserved buildings, each one carrying echoes of the town's mining heritage. Looking south, the slopes of Deer Valley rise behind the town as if the mountains themselves were part of Main Street. Turn another direction, and a rainbow briefly appears over the neighborhood, as though the mountains decided to offer one more unforgettable memory. Perhaps one of Park City's most unique sights is watching chairlifts glide directly over the sidewalks. Skiers float quietly overhead while life continues below. It's a scene unlike almost anywhere else. The brightly colored homes, the yellow, rust, and teal facades add another layer of personality to a town already filled with character. Even the fences tell stories here. One is built entirely from retired skis, giving new purpose to decades of mountain adventures. And an old mining cart resting on a short stretch of track quietly reminds visitors that before these mountains welcomed skiers, they welcomed miners searching for silver beneath the earth. But it wasn't the town that inspired my painting of this area. It was what lay just beyond it, the Provo River. Fed by snowmelt flowing down from the Wasatch Mountains, the river winds through forests and meadows before eventually making its way into Utah Lake. Its water is astonishingly clear, cold, and alive. Standing beside the river, every sense becomes engaged. The constant rush of moving water, the scent of pine carried on the breeze, the cool mountain air, the sunlight dancing across polished stones beneath the current. It wasn't difficult to understand why this place demanded to be painted. Every landscape starts with atmosphere. For this sky, I begin with a combination of ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and Kremnitz white, which softens the intensity of the blue and lends to a more realistic scene. One of the things I enjoy most about painting outdoors or studying a place carefully afterward is recognizing that nature is composed of many different shades of green. I started with sap green in this case, as a base color, and then mixed in lemon yellow and transparent yellow oxide to soften the intensity and create a more realistic green hue. This combination added depth to the middle ground pines and gave them a sunlit glow around the edges. Along the Provo River grow Douglas fir, blue spruce, lodgepole pine, and graceful stands of quaking aspen. Closer to the water's edge, willows lean toward the current, while red osier dogwood adds subtle touches of color throughout the seasons. To achieve that striking red hue, I mix transparent red oxide with lemon yellow and cadmium yellow, and then tone down the intensity with ultramarine blue. There was a touch of Kremnitz white in there as well. Numerous species of vegetation line the river, including wild rose, chokeberry, mountain lupine, Indian paintbrush, yarrow, and columbine. Together they create an ecosystem that is remarkably rich and balanced. Cadmium red, transparent yellow oxide, and transparent red oxide help create the countless earthy variations found in bark, grasses, shrubs, and late season foliage. Nothing in nature is one color. Everything reflects something around it. The rocks receive the same careful attention. Using burnt umber, transparent yellow oxide, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and Kremnitz white, I slowly build layers of warmth and cool reflected light. River stones aren't simply gray. They're shaped by water, polished by time, and constantly changing as the sky above and the river below influence every surface. The river itself becomes a careful balance between motion and reflection. Rather than painting individual ripples, I look for patterns of light. Those fleeting reflections tell the viewer where the current slows, where it accelerates around a boulder, and where the water becomes almost perfectly still. There are 5 essential elements of painting water to consider. As I learned at Tisch Academy, they are topography, the body of water, including color, clarity, and depth, refraction, reflection, and surface. Little by little, and I mean that, brushstroke by brushstroke, something unexpected begins to happen. The paint disappears. The place returns. I always save many of my brightest highlights until the very end. Titanium white, which is a very, very stark white, becomes the final note. A sparkle on distant snow, sunlight skipping across the water, tiny moments that bring the entire painting to life. This is my favorite moment, when I stop seeing paint and start hearing the river again. I remember the cool mountain air, the scent of pine, the sound of water slipping over stone, the feeling of standing in a place where the world seemed to slow down for just a little while. That's what I hope every painting becomes. Not simply an image, but an invitation to pause, to breathe, to notice. Because beauty has never demanded our attention. It has always waited patiently for someone willing to truly see it. This painting isn't just about the Provo River. It's about rediscovering something many of us have forgotten: wonder. Because once you learn to see the whispers hidden within wild places, you begin hearing them everywhere. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm Jim Peters, and this has been Whispers of Wild Places. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your heart curious, and never stop listening to the quiet places, because they're still whispering.